Hello, AP World History. I'm Miss Ziegler, the Time Machine teacher, and tonight we are going to be practicing the DBQ. So there are two links down in the descriptions you need to go to. The first one is a Google link for the documents that we're going to be covering, so grab that one. And the second one is the DBQ rubric for the modified exam, so make sure and pull that up as well. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to get in here. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you subscribe. We will be going over documents live every week until the exam on Wednesdays at 7. All right, I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes to get in here. Let me turn this light down a little bit because it's blinding me. All right. So if you just hopped in, make sure and say hello in the comments over there, and then grab the two documents that are linked down in the description. The first one will be the DBQ documents that you will take notes on, and the second one is the DBQ rubric, which is modified for the new exam. So grab those real quick, and then we are going to get started. This DBQ that we're practicing tonight is Unit 1. If you were in my class, then you need to do this as a part of the Amazing Race, which is going to be Unit 3. So make sure that your notes that you get tonight from listening to the live, you put into your Amazing Race PowerPoint for Unit 3. Hi, Lauren. How you doing? Yes, this can help with APUSH. The only thing, Lauren, is that it will be world history documents, but the rubric is going to be the same. If you need help with APUSH, though, let me know. I'd love to help out. Okay, we're going to get started. If you're just hopping on, make sure you get the rubric down below as well as the documents from the Google link. Now, the documents from the Google link, that is only going to let you open it up and view it. You need to make your own copy in order to be able to type on it. And once again, if you're in my class, you need to be able to type on those, and you're going to take notes on those so that you can turn those in with your Unit 3 Amazing Race. Now, one thing that we're going to practice, you are going to be getting the DBQ from the AP College Board on your computer. You will not have a printed out copy. So we've been practicing up until this point, writing on the actual documents and annotating the actual documents. You will not be doing that, though, this time because you won't be able to write on your computer screen. So we're going to practice tonight being able to annotate on a separate sheet of paper. Okay, so once you get that Google Doc opened up, and you can see the documents that we're going to go over tonight, and you get the rubric opened up, what I want you to do is get a separate sheet of paper so that you can annotate on that paper. All right? Lauren says, my teacher hasn't explained DBQs that much. I'm confused in general, but I'm sure I will learn something, even if it's for a little bit. Yeah, you definitely will. Especially, Lauren, because this year the DBQs are modified, shortened, that is, for the test. You're only going to have 45 minutes, and so it's very important that you get done quickly and efficiently. Also, what you need to do is check out the rubric. I've got it linked below. So grab that rubric. APUSH and AP World are the same rubric. So that's what I'm going to be going over tonight, and that will kind of help you. All right, so the first thing that you need to do is context. You guys get 1 point for context on the new modified DBQ, okay? So context is whatever is leading up to that event. So for APUSH, it's going to be the same thing. Whatever you're going into, that and however it got to that point, okay? So for example, this DBQ that we're going to go over tonight is from Unit 1. We know that Unit 1 is 1200 to 1400. And so your context is going to be anything before 1200 that leads up to your topic in your DBQ. All right. If you're just hopping on here, make sure and get the DBQ documents. They're down in the links below. So if you're doing APUSH, a good idea would be to know what your time frames are for each unit. All right. So for example, for your test this year, you're going to be doing periods 1 through 5. So know roundabout what those time periods are. All right. So for Unit 1, for AP World, it's 1200 to 1400. Some good context for that would be what happens before 1200 that is going to lead into whatever events we're talking about. So, for example, you could write about classical civilizations, being Rome and Greece, and how they fall. You could talk about new states emerging and trade increasing. So here are some other examples that you can link in your context. Remember, you have to link it to your topic of whatever the DBQ is going to be about. So tonight's DBQ is about Africa and trade in Africa. So your context has to link to that. Now, in general, during this or before this time period, before 1200 in general, the trade routes are connecting Africa, Europe, and Asia, specifically Trans-Saharan, Indian Ocean, and Silk Roads. So you could explain that and why that even happens, because your DBQ, the topic is going to be about that. And if you're just hopping on, make sure you get the DBQ down in the links below. So, Lauren, if you're still here, let me know that you're still here, and I'll also give you some examples with a push. Just let me know. All right. So, other things that happened before 1200 that you could talk about is the Islamic Empire is expanding, and it gives stability in the Middle East. Two important parts of those empires, Umayyad dynasty or Umayyad Caliphate is from 661 to 750. It extends into Spain. Abbasid Caliphate goes from 750 to 1258, and it falls to the Mongols. This is the kind of stuff that you can be writing down right now for context, not specifically just for this DBQ, but context for Unit 1, so that when you go into the exam, you can have all of the, you can have like a 1 page of context for Unit 1, another one for Unit 2, another one for Unit 3. That way, whatever your DBQ topic is about, you can connect it. All right, so make sure you're taking notes on this. Okay, Lawrence here, but it makes sense with contextualization. I assume you would put it in the intro. Yeah, so you can put it anywhere in the paper. I suggest just putting it right away in the intro because it just makes more sense. Now, context can also be during the event or after the event. I think it's easy to do it before because it's kind of like the beginning chapter of whatever you're writing about. The key with context, though, is to make sure you connect it. All right, Lauren, I suggest what you do is you go through periods 1 through 5 and look at the beginning. I think you guys use the AMSCO book. And in the beginning of our AMSCO book, at the beginning of each chapter, there's context for that period coming up. So you can check that. And if you can't find context, make sure and let me know. Just send me an email and I'll help you with some resources to be able to find context. But a good idea before your exam would be to have 5 pages, 1 for each unit, and just have some topics that you can write about for context. That's what I'm going to have the world history kids do that are in my class, because those topics can then prompt you. So, for example, I'm going over several topics right now. Once they get to the DBQ and they find out that it's about the Trans-Saharan trade route, then they can use that in their context. Okay, and they'll have that on like a sheet to kind of prompt them to get there. All right, let's keep talking about context here. So we also have innovations that are coming from China and Dar al-Islam in this before 1200 period. An example of that would be the astrolabe, the magnetic compass. Those will eventually get to Europe and help Europe start to trade and start to build maritime empires. Western Europe and Japan are decentralized at this time. They have decentralized governments. And most of the power is in land-holding nobles' hands. So that's something else that they could write about. Most of Africa is stateless. So except for the western and eastern parts of Africa, they're all run by kin-based tribal groups. And all of these areas are going to be shaped by trade. An example is silk coming from China and spices coming from India, gold coming from Africa. In your context, you want to make sure and have 2 events and a couple of examples to throw in there of what is leading up to whatever event your DBQ is going to be about. So on that 1-pager that I'm going to have you prepare for the test, you should have some events and then some examples to go with it. All right, if you're just hopping in here, make sure you get the DBQ down below. If you're in my class, you will be turning that in. So make sure you grab that and just make a copy of it, and then you'll be able to type right on there. You'll also need the modified rubric that's down below. It says a push. It's from another teacher. He's amazing. He does A-push videos. Lauren, you might want to check him out. His name is Tom Ritchie. He's actually doing some lives right now for A-push to get you guys prepared and help you review. So you definitely want to check him out. But the A-push and AP World rubric is the same, and I love his layout. So I thought I would share it with you guys. This is just really easy to follow. Now, some other options that you can put down in your context notes. During 1200 to 1400, this is what's happening. The Song dynasty is the most wealthy empire of the world. The Aztecs are on the rise. Trade results in growth of states of Mali and Ghana in Africa and various states in India and Southeast Asia. Also, the Mongols are in the process of creating the largest empire from the Pacific to Eastern Europe. And this allows for trade to flourish because the Silk Road gets safer. So all of this is stuff that you could write down about Unit 1. It either leads up to Unit 1 or it's happening during Unit 1. Then when you read your DBQ on the test, you can go to your DBQ and you see that this DBQ is about kingdoms and sub-Saharan regions. So you're going to write your context connecting it with that. Well, what can we use from what I just talked about to write that context? You could use several things. You could say before 1200, classical civilizations such as Rome and Greece fell. And as a result of that, Europe was very decentralized, right? Because they needed safety. They needed protection that they weren't getting from the Roman Empire anymore. And they also participated in the Crusades. The Crusades, when they came back from the Crusades, they brought back with them items that became very high demand, and trade became more necessary because of this demand. So you can work it into trade in that way, and you can talk about how new technologies and innovations were coming from China and Dar al-Islam, which enabled Europeans to explore and trade more. Now, what is the big key factor why Europeans had to start exploring in a different way? Remember when the Ottoman Empire expanded and they took over Constantinople? Then it became harder for the Europeans to go through that area. So you could say that because the Ottoman Empire had taken over Constantinople, the Europeans started looking for new routes. Now you have to connect it somehow to the trans-Saharan trade route. So you can say that because of the high demand for products and the fact that the Europeans are exploring more, the trans-Saharan trade route becomes more important and it expands more as these items are being sold on the trans-Saharan trade route. So you're basically taking a couple of events that happened before 1200 and you're linking them to the trans-Saharan trade route. That would be your context. You get 1 point for doing that. So you want to make sure that you have time to do context because it's an easy point to get as long as you connect it to whatever your DBQ is about, okay? If you have any questions about context, make sure and drop it over there in the comments and I'll help you out with that. All right, so let's look at the question that we have here. This question is from Unit 1 of your AMSCO book. So if you have the AMSCO book, either the old or new one, it's also in there as well as on this document. So the question is, develop an argument evaluating the extent to which the kingdoms and empires of sub-Saharan region succeeded in making achievements between 1200 and 1450. So you're looking in these documents for ways that they succeeded in achievements or succeeded in achieving something, right? That's what you're trying to prove from these documents. Now, on the modified exam that we're having this year, you're going to have 5 documents. 4 of those will be text-based and 1 will be a picture or a map or something like that. Now, if you look at the rubric, I didn't print mine, so I'm going to pull it up on my phone real quick. If you look at the rubric, you have 1 point for thesis, and then the meat of your essay will be describing at least 2 documents, supporting from at least 2 documents. But if you support from 4, then you get a total of 3 points for all of that. And then doing at least 2 of the point of view, purpose, historical situation, or audience. All right, it's the same with a push. Now, here's the thing that's really important. There's a difference between describe and support. Describe, you're just telling what the document means. So like the main idea of the document. You're not doing that quoting, you're doing that in your own words, right? So that's important. Now, if you do that twice and you get that right, you get 1 point. If you do that twice plus you do supporting from 2 documents, then that's another point. Supporting would be pulling something from the document that supports your argument. Basically, using that document to prove your argument. Okay, then if you do supporting 4 times, you get a total of 3 points for that section. Now, this is where it's going to be tricky because you only have 45 minutes. And normally when we practiced DBQ, we gave you about 20 minutes to look at the documents. Since you only have 45 minutes, you need at least 30 minutes to write. So that means you need to get your documents done in 15 minutes. So it's imperative that you only read the documents once and you annotate off to the side as much as you can so you know what you're going to use from those documents. So we know we have to describe, we know we have to support, and then you also get those points for explaining, which is point of view or audience or purpose. The easiest one probably would be point of view or audience, okay? So when we go through these documents, what I want you to do, have your documents up on one part of the screen, and then you can have the video if you want to keep it open, obviously, because you're going to have to listen to me explain it. And then you need a piece of paper sitting down beside you that you're going to annotate on, okay? So I'm going to give you just like 30 seconds. Make sure you have that all set up and ready to go because we're going to practice exactly how you would do this on the actual day, okay? All right, so here we go. I'm also going to set a timer. Well, no, I'm not going to set a timer tonight because as we go through, I'm going to be explaining stuff, so it's obviously going to take us longer than that 15 minutes to go through the documents. But that's your goal. You want to try to get to 15 minutes. Now, what I'm going to do in the future for my class, I'm going to give you the DBQ ahead of time on like Monday so that you can practice it Monday and Tuesday on your own, and then Wednesday we'll go over it in the live. Okay, so let's look at this. We have document 1, and this is from an Egyptian official, Mansa Musa, who is the ruler from Mali. He is writing this during Mansa Musa's visit to Cairo in the 14th century. Now, remember, we're looking for things that they succeeded at achieving, okay, like success, things that they achieved. We know Mansa Musa is the ruler. It tells us that right here. Now, what could we tell about the Egyptian official? Can we do point of view for him? We know that he's upper class, right? He's accustomed to having money. So those are some things that we could maybe use for point of view. He's also a part of the government because he's an Egyptian official. So on your little notes that you're annotating, write document 1 and then write point of view. Upper class, government, just write GOV for government. And now we're going to read the document, okay? So the document says, this man, Mansa Musa, spread upon Cairo the flood of his generosity. There was no person, officer of the court, or holder of any office of the Sultanate who did not receive a sum of gold from him. Okay, so what does this talk about? How would you describe this document? What's the main idea? On your paper, write a D for describes, okay? And then you could say maybe something like it talks about how Mansa Musa gave away his wealth as he went through Cairo. Obviously, he's going to have to be very rich and successful to give money to everyone he sees, right? Because this person says that there wasn't a single person that he didn't, or that he came across that he didn't give money to, right? So he has to be very successful. So what does this prove about success and achievements? How did Mansa Musa get his money? We know that he got his money from harnessing the power and the wealth of the trans-Saharan trade route, right? And really participating in that and structuring it and running it. So in your notes, you could put down that the description is Mansa Musa was very successful, and according to the author of this document, said that he gave money to everyone he saw. Okay, something like that. Doesn't have to be in those exact words. If you can shorten it, great, because remember, these are just notes on your document. Then, what does this prove about success? Well, you could say that clearly, in order for him to give money to everyone that he saw, he had to be successful. And he got his success from governing the trans-Saharan trade route and making wealth off of that, or making money off of that. So you would summarize that, okay? And you are not quoting anything. You're just taking this and rewording it. That would be a describes and a supports. Now, what else could we write about point of view? His point of view, he clearly likes Mansa Musa, right? He thinks he's a pretty cool guy. You can kind of infer that. So maybe put beside point of view, he writes positively, or he likes Mansa Musa. Make sure that the first time you read this document, you get everything written down on your notes that you need to use for your essay, okay? Try to do describes, supports, and explain if you can. All right. Let's go to document 2. Write on your paper, document 2, and then put a D for describes. You can do an S for support and E for explain if you want to. Everybody following me so far? Anybody need me to slow down? Just let me know. All right, document 2 is a description of Timbuktu. Timbuktu is in Mali by Leo Africanus, a traveler and a writer born in Granada, Al-Andalus, in the 16th century. So Granada is in Spain, and it's during the time that the Umayyad Empire was there. So we know that there were some Muslims there. He could possibly be Muslim, but we're not positive about that, right? And it says, here are many doctors, judges, priests, and other learned men that are well maintained at the king's cost. Various manuscripts and written books are brought here and sold for more money than other merchandise. So education is important, right? So point of view, we know this guy lives outside of Timbuktu. He's not from Timbuktu, okay? So he's an outsider. We know that Timbuktu is in Mali, so maybe put down like Timbuktu equals Mali, something like that, so that you remember that. And then your description. Well, how would you describe the main idea of this? You could say something like, many educated people live there, books are valued. That's kind of just rewording what he's saying, right? They're educated. And you could also put down that the king pays for their education. That's what maintained at the king's cost means. So clearly, the king or the government values education as well, right? So what could we use to support these achievements? Well, the achievement could be education, and we could say that they were successful because many were being educated here. That proves that achievement. Examples would be doctor, judges, priest. Okay. Hi, Luz. How you doing? So when explaining point of view, what are the 2 questions you're supposed to answer? Point of view is, who is the author? What does the author believe? And why do they believe it? And when we get to actually writing this DBQ, I'll explain that a little bit more. But when you're taking notes on your documents, you want to look for things like, what are their social class? What is their gender? What is their religion? Where are they from? All of those things can affect your point of view. For example, if I'm a woman and I'm writing about men, do I really understand what men are thinking? No, I don't, because I'm a woman. And most of the time I don't agree with them. Now, if you're a man and you're talking about women, we know they definitely don't understand us, right? Their point of view is different because they don't know what it's like. So in this case, this guy is an outsider to Timbuktu. So he might be shocked. He might not understand why they're doing something that they're doing because he's not from there. So his point of view might be different than someone who is actually from there, okay? So look for all of those things. You usually find those things in the little source description. That's where it will tell you what religion they are, like what, if they're upper class, lower class, all those things, okay? We'll get into point of view a little bit more later though. All right, let's look at document 3. Document 3, the source is Travels to the Kingdom of Mali by Bon Batuta. We know who Bon Batuta is. Hey, Annie, if you're just hopping on, make sure you get the documents down below. You're going to need that. And you can rewind and watch the first part later, but definitely take some notes on the documents below. Just make a copy because it won't let you write on the one that I posted. All right, so document 3 is a Bon Batuta. We know he's a traveler. He's not from Mali, but he is Muslim. We know that about him, right? So you can write down for point of view, he's a Muslim and he's a traveler, so he's from outside of the area. All right, let's look at the document. It says, among their good qualities is the small amount of injustice amongst them. For of all people, they are the furthest from it. Their sultan does not forgive anyone in any matter to do with justice. Among these qualities, there is also the prevalence of peace in their country. The traveler is not afraid in it, nor is he who lives there in fear of the thief or the robber by violence. So basically, what's he saying? If you describe the document, he's saying travelers are safe in Mali. It's peaceful. Justice is carried out by the government. That's just rewording that document. That's the main idea of that document, right? Now, what could this be proof of an achievement? Remember, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for these different achievements. Well, this is definitely an achievement by the government, right? It's not easy to make a peaceful area. So this is definitely an achievement. So put down that, you know, the government is successful in ruling, or the government is successfully structured, something like that, so that you remember that that's what that document's talking about. All right, let's go on to document 4. Write that on your paper, document 4. Here we go. So this source is from a resident of Cordoba, Spain. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name because I'll butcher it. I don't want to do that. He never traveled to Africa, but based his observations on interviews with travelers. So he did not see this firsthand. He interviewed travelers. That's kind of interesting, right? So it might not be completely trustworthy because he didn't actually see it. He says the city of Ghana consists of 2 towns situated on a plain. One of these towns, which is inhabited by Muslims, is large and possesses 12 mosques. In the environs are wells with sweet water, from which they drink and with which they grow vegetables. The king's town is 6 miles distance from this one and bears the name of Al-Gaba. Between these 2 towns, there are continuous habitations. The houses of the inhabitants are of stone and acacia wood. So to describe this document, you could talk about the fact that these towns sound like they're thriving, they're successful, they have the technology and access to water. Why do you think it's important that he mentions their houses are made out of stone and acacia wood? What kind of houses did they normally have if they're just living in a small village? Were they normally made out of wood or out of stone? Probably not. So that shows what? What does that show? It shows advances. Good job, Luz. Definitely. It shows advances and it shows wealth. Stone and acacia wood are going to be more expensive. So that shows achievements in wealth, right? So put that down as this proves success because their houses are built out of acacia wood and stone, which is more expensive than clay. Hi, Parker. How's it going? So, Parker, what you have to do, make sure you get the Google link that's down below that has the documents that we're going over. And you can just start with us now and then listen to the first half later. I just went over the things that you're going to have to do. But we're basically right now just going through the documents and taking notes on them. So get the links below and then also grab a piece of paper so that you can take notes, because when it's on your computer screen, when you're actually taking the test, you're not gonna be able to do that. Okay. Now, if we're describing document 4, we could just say about the technology and how it has wells and towns, and it sounds really, really good. And then the actual pulling something from it to support, that's where you would talk about the fact that the inhabitants have houses that are made out of expensive materials versus just clay. So that shows success. Okay. Good job, Luz. All right. So we got document 5, and then we will start writing this thing. So document 5 is a bronze head of a staff that is in the shape of a coiled snake. It's from the people of Nigeria. So this is an example of a document that you may see. You might see a picture or a map or a chart or something like that. So to describe this document, we could say that this is an example of a bronze staff that the people of Nigeria had at the time. Okay. Now, if you want to be very technical and use the word metallurgy, remember metallurgy means working with iron or metal. Let me spell it right here. So you could use that and you could say this is an example of how the people worked with, or this is an example of metallurgy from this time period. That's what you could talk about. Now, we're looking for achievements, right? So you could talk about something about how this shows their ability to actually work with bronze. This was not an easy task, and you can see it's very detailed. Could the snake reference Christianity or something religious? It possibly could, Luz. It possibly could, but it doesn't really say that it does. And at the time, people of Nigeria, let's see, 9th century, they probably wouldn't have been Christian, but I'm not sure. There could have been some Christians there. So I wouldn't go so far as to say that, but it could possibly be something religious. Okay. Now, let's draw 3 buckets on your paper. Somewhere underneath where you put your notes, you're going to draw 3 buckets. Now, if we only use 2, that's fine. I'm going to turn my light down just a little bit. It's still blinding me a little bit. Okay. That's okay if we only use 2. But use 3 to start with, okay? So on your paper, you're drawing these buckets. Now what you need to do is somehow put these documents together to show different successes, because these are eventually going to be your paragraphs, right? So if you look back over your notes, document 1, the success is riches, right? The success in trade. Document 2 is more about education. Document 3 is about the safety. So that could be coming from wealth, right? Because you need to have wealth in order to have a strong government. And document 4, that addresses wealth as well. Could we throw document 5 in with education perhaps? Because it takes education to know how to work with metal, right? So maybe we could have 2 paragraphs and we could say 1 achievement was success with the trans-Saharan trade. And we could use documents 1, 3, and 4 for that. And then we could use documents 2 and 5 and say another success was education. You could also call this one successful leadership. Let's go with that one. That might be a little easier to prove. So successful leadership, incorporating the trans-Saharan trade route and making money off of that, right? Advances in artwork, that could work, except document 2 doesn't really talk about artwork, right? It's more about education. So maybe I would throw in like advances of artwork when you're talking about this paragraph, but use education as your umbrella that kind of goes over all of it. You want to try to make these broad enough that you can use these documents to prove it. Now, if you don't have enough documents to like make a group, you can prove with one document, right? I could prove the successful leadership just talking about document 1, but it makes a stronger argument if you have more documents put together. But don't think that you have to have those documents put together. If you wanted to, you could take one of these and prove a whole nother thing. But remember, we only have 45 minutes. So the faster that you group them together or work them together, the faster it will be to write it, right? Okay, so your thesis. Let's look at your question again. It says, develop an argument evaluating the extent to which the kingdom and empires of the sub-Saharan region succeeded in making achievements between 1200 and 1450. So we're looking for how they succeeded, right? So you could write something like, the kingdoms and empires of sub-Saharan region of Africa greatly succeeded in achieving strong and efficient leadership. We can prove that with these 3 documents, okay? And improving the education of the people of the region. So let me tell you that again. The kingdoms and empires of sub-Saharan region of Africa, you just take in some of your prompt, greatly succeeded in achieving strong and efficient leadership and improving the education of the people of the region. So whatever you decide these buckets are going to be, that becomes your thesis. We already talked about context, so you have that written. We talked about thesis, that's 2 points, okay? Now let's write your paragraphs. You can write this when you take your actual test. You can write it on a piece of paper or you can type it. It's probably going to be faster to type it. That way you can just submit it right away. If you write it on a piece of paper, you have to take a picture of it and they're only giving you 5 minutes to download it. Now here's the key. If you don't get it downloaded in time, like if your internet's too slow or whatever, then you don't get any points at all. So it's probably better to type it. If you are a slow typer, let me know because I found a typing program that you can practice and you'll become a professional before the AP exam. Okay, so Lou says, is it okay to have 2 body paragraphs? Yes, absolutely. There's nothing in the rubric that says that you have to have 3. We were teaching you 3 because we thought that it was going to be a full DBQ. But because you have limited time, 2 is fine. As a matter of fact, 1 is fine if that's all that you can write. But we'll talk about strategies at the end of this video. Okay, so topic sentence. What you're going to do is take your thesis and break it down. So your first topic sentence would be kingdoms and empires of sub-Saharan region of Africa greatly succeeded by achieving strong and efficient leadership. You're just taking that first topic and writing a sentence with it. And if you want to, you can type this on a Google Doc right now. You know, if you're taking notes on the Google Doc, you don't have to handwrite this right now. You can put it on your Google Doc, that's fine. Then we need to talk about document 1. So look back at your notes for document 1. Let me see if I can find them here. Look back at document 1 notes. We said for document 1, this is, it proves Mansa Musa was rich and that he was successful, and he gave gold to everyone he met, and his success comes from the trade routes. Okay, so we have to describe it first. So you would say something like, document 1 describes the pilgrimage of Mansa Musa to Mecca. Here's how you spell his name. Make sure you say document 1 or you won't get credit for it. Document 1 describes Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca and how he gave gold to everyone he came in contact with. That would be 1 describes. We have to do this at least twice. We didn't quote from the document, and you said the document name. That's important. This one, okay, you're right. So it has to show successful leadership. Now, here's the thing, Luz. This is just describing the document. Here, the description doesn't necessarily have to show what you're trying to prove. The supports is showing what you're trying to prove. So now you have to pull something from there, right, to prove that. So you said it shows successful leadership as he has the ability to spread his wealth to others. Perfect. So you could say that exact thing for your next sentence, right? This document shows that he had successful leadership because he had the ability to spread his wealth to others. Yes, you can use that for support. I would add in there that he gained his wealth from the successful leadership of the government of Mali and controlling the trans-Saharan trade route, okay? Make sure that you talk about like how he gained that wealth, because that shows that you know a little bit more than what the document is even saying, right? So can you paraphrase and say document 1, or do you have to use evidence straight from the documents? You're always paraphrasing it, okay? Now, you can write your sentence without document 1 and then put it in the end, like what you have it written here, but you have to note it someplace in there, okay? So like I could say, he achieved success and wealth due to his leadership of governance of the trans-Saharan trade route, and then put document 1 in parentheses behind there. I could say that. Or I could say, according to document 1, blah, 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 blah. Either way, okay? But Luz, yes, you're on point with that. That would definitely support that. Okay, so now we have 1 support. Our goal here is 4, right? If you have time, definitely do more because it never hurts to have extra. Okay, now, can we do point of view for this? Well, we wrote for point of view, this guy's upper class, he's government official, and he sounds like he likes Mansa Musa. So what could we write for the point of view for this? Now, remember, what you're answering your questions for point of view is who is the author? Okay, we know he's an Egyptian official. What does he believe? And why does he believe it? See if you can write point of view and drop it in the comments for me. And give you a little point of view test. Any takers? Who is he? He's an Egyptian official. What does he believe? He likes Mansa Musa, right? He believes Mansa Musa is rich. He knows that he's rich. He sees this. He witnesses it, right? Why do you think he has the opinion of Mansa Musa that he does? Like, we can assume and we can infer that he likes Mansa Musa, that he thinks he's kind of wowed by this, right? Remember, he's upper class. Does he know how hard it is to make money? Yes, and he's also rich, right? So he's probably thinking, I don't really want to part with my money the way that Mansa Musa is. So this guy must be like really rich if he's just like willing to give it all away, right? So for point of view, I would write something like the point of view of this document, let me see where I wrote it, is written by an Egyptian official who is upper class in society. Since he is upper class, it can be assumed that he understands the value of wealth and making money, which is why he is so impressed with what Mansa Musa is doing. So you're taking who he is and you're explaining why he writes it that way, okay? Let me say it for you one more time. This document is written by an Egyptian official who is upper class in society. He is impressed by the amount of money that Mansa Musa is giving away. Since he is upper class, it can be assumed that he understands the value of wealth and making money, which is why he's so impressed. Luz says the point of view is that the Egyptian official believes in the leadership and success of Mansa Musa as other officials like him are being rewarded. That could be too. That could work. Absolutely. Very good. You're on point tonight, Luz. I'm excited. You're getting ready for this. I can see vast improvement from the beginning of the year. That's for sure. Okay, good. So now we have one of our explains. Our goal here is to get 2. Let's see if we can do it. Okay, our next document is document 2 that we're going to use. So if you look back at that one, this one talks about the educated people and how books are in high demand and very expensive, right? So you can say more proof that the government had achieved successful leadership is found in document 3. Oh, sorry. We're going to document 3. 2 is for the next one. It's found in document 3, where Batuta explains that the area is peaceful and the ruler enforces justice on the region. That's describing the document. You're just telling the main idea. What's Batuta say? This shows that you understand what the document's talking about. So there's another describes for you. More proof that the government had achieved successful leadership is found in document 3, where Batuta explains that the area is peaceful and the ruler enforces justice. Simple as that. Now you have to pull something from it, right, to prove leadership. So you could say something like, according to the document, the strictness of the Sultan results in the people following the law and obeying, which shows achievement in the leadership of the region. The fact that people are following the law and obeying what the Sultan says, that shows the achievement of leadership. That could be your second support. Any questions about that? All right, let's go on to point of view. Point of view, we said we know Batuta is a Muslim and that he is an outsider. He's not from Mali, right? So you could say something like, point of view document 3 from Batuta is he is a Muslim traveler. He believes that the area is peaceful and safe. He writes this from a firsthand experience. Since he's traveled from other areas that aren't safe, he can base his experience on he can base this on other experiences that he's had, basically. Now, what's important about him being a Muslim, do you think? This, you could also write the point of view based on that, right? Because since he is a Muslim, he is going to agree with how they are ruling because they are also a Muslim country. So you may say that because he's a Muslim, he agrees with this strictness and that it results in peace. Creates positivity as he's also Muslim. Okay, good. So he's very positive about it. Right, Luz? Because he is a Muslim. He agrees with it. He supports it. Right? He supports the strictness. Very good. You're getting to the heart of what he's about, right? Why he writes this way. Now, we have our 2 describes. So what I would suggest at this point, look at the clock and be like, okay, I have 20 minutes left. Do I have time to put an extra describe? If you have 20 minutes left, then sure, write one more describe. If you got 10 minutes left, then skip the describes and keep writing the supports, right? Because you want to be able to get these points. Now, if you can get extras, that's helpful because what if you got one of these wrong and missed that point because you got it wrong? So you're just going to have to kind of self-time yourself and kind of self-guide yourself, right? If you have extra minutes left, then sure, go for it. Put some extra stuff in there. It just really depends on how fast you can get through the documents to see how much time you have left. That's why we're going to keep practicing. Okay, what else we got here? So document 4, go to document 4 for your notes for that one. Document 4 is the one about the towns, okay? So you could say document 4 points to the success of the leadership through the description of the towns. That would describe it, right? Points to the success of the leadership through describing the successful towns. Now, like I said, if you're running out of time, don't write that one because we already had that point fulfilled. but if you have time, write it. Then you could say, these towns have access to water and buildings made out of expensive materials. That's the description point too. You're describing what the paragraph or the document is talking about. Then you're going to get into your supports. You could say something like, the buildings made out of stone and acacia wood are more expensive than how they would have been built out of clay. Using these costly materials shows that the government had success in leadership in regards to bringing revenue to the state, which allowed the people to build better structures. Okay, so you're basically talking about the costly materials, and you're connecting that to leadership by bringing in revenue to help build. Now, we can't claim that the government is paying for these buildings, right? Because it doesn't say that. But the government is clearly leading the people in a way that they can make money and have a good economy in order to be able to afford to build better homes and structures. So we can conclude that. That would get you your supports point. This one would be hard to do point of view because you can't really see in here whether or not he agrees with it or doesn't agree with it. And remember, he didn't actually go. He's just getting this information from observers. And they don't really like you to say like, well, it might not be accurate because he didn't actually see it. They probably won't give you a point for that. So I would just skip the point of view for that one and go on to the next one. You could maybe try to do audience. His audience could possibly be like the people of Cordoba. But once again, that's hard to do because it's coming from interviews of other travelers. So, let's just skip that one for right now. Unless you guys have any other ideas that you want to share in the comments, feel free. Okay, then we're going to go on to our second paragraph. Another way the kingdoms and empires of sub-Saharan regions of Africa greatly succeeded was by educating their population. Period. This is your second bucket. And we're looking at document 2. Where's document 2? There it is. Okay. So if we want to, we can have an extra describes, right? Did we get an extra? Yeah, we did do an extra describes for that. Okay. Probably by this time, you're going to be pretty close to running out of time. Okay. So you can skip describing and go straight to how this proves education. So you could say something like, he says the education of these people is provided by the king. So it can be inferred that the government values education as well. And in order for the government to pay for and promote education, they had to be successful in regards to wealth to be able to pay for it. Then you could also add that it appears that the high demand for books leads people to value education because they will pay the high price. At this point, you have 4 supports. You don't have any extras though, so if you have time, then go on to the next one. If you don't have time, then don't do it. But definitely if you have time, write in extra supports, because supports are harder to get than describes are. So if we go on to document 5, we know that it shows a bronze serpent from the time frame. That would be describes. Once again, if you don't have time, don't do that one. And then just say, like, the example of the bronze serpent shows success of education in this region because of the obvious knowledge of detailed metallurgy or working with metal. And the fact that it was able to be so detailed is a good sign of success too, right? Because that's not easy to do. Now you have an extra supports, which is good because those are hard to get. The last 2 points that we're going to try for is evidence. And you also have your thesis up here and the context. That we talked about at the very beginning. So evidence, you can get up to 2 points for each piece of evidence. Evidence is outside the documents. What else do you know about this? Oh, you're so welcome, Parker. You know I love you guys. I just want you to be successful. So you are so welcome. Thank you for diligently listening and practicing. It will pay off. Okay, so evidence. These are your last 2 points. This is outside of the documents. So for example, you could say something like, the trans-Saharan trade route led to the success of the sub-Saharan region by providing riches for the states in the area to grow. Simple, right? But that's probably not going to count for one piece, so you got to add to it. You could say something like, before the trade route, this region was mostly led by kin-based networks with chiefs in control. The trade route made it necessary to have a centralized government. Therefore, a shift occurred when the trade route became more prominent and the governments became more centralized. That would be good enough for 1 evidence point. I would say about 2 to 3 sentences is what you want to try for. Lou says, could the historical evidence be talking about Hausa kingdoms and how they benefited? Absolutely. Anything that has to do with the trans-Saharan trade route and this topic in general. It could be more information that you know about Mansa Musa. It could be information that you know about Sundiata, who was the ruler before Mansa Musa. It can be anything that ties to this general thing, okay? Another aspect that you could talk about is how Ghana's rulers began trade of gold and ivory with Muslim merchants. And you could talk about how Islamic religion spread through the merchants on the trade route. So what I suggest doing is, if you're all, I think most of you are doing The Amazing Race, but have that accessible for when you're writing this. Now, here's the thing, though. You're not going to have a lot of time. So what I would suggest is have like a 1-page document printed out if you have a printer. If you don't, just have it on a separate computer. If you have one, you could have it open on your phone, somewhere where it's accessible, and have like unit 1. And you've probably made a 1-pager before where it's just 1 page of information. So do unit 1. Here's the context ideas. Here's some extra evidence ideas. And then you would look through there for some like quick tips of, oh yeah, I could talk about that. And I could talk about this. And if you guys want to, we can do a live video, or I can just do a regular video too, helping you set those 1-pagers up so that you're ready and prepared. Because here's the thing, studying is definitely going to be important. you cannot like write down on your paper the trans-Saharan trade route, blah, 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 and have all this information, right? But you could write down trans-Saharan trade route, gold, ivory, merchants, spreading Muslim. You could write down little tidbits like that, and that would definitely help. So probably what I'll do when the test gets closer, we'll do some lives where we're just covering, hey, how do I make that one pager? And I'll help you guys set up one pagers for each unit. Okay, now if you have more time after you get to this point, then you can write some extra sources. You can write some extra evidence. Chances of you having more time are pretty slim though, because it took me close to 45 minutes to write this out. And, you know, I'm pretty quick. Also, these documents are pretty short, and I'm not sure how short the documents are going to be on the actual AP test. If the College Board is not feeling generous, then they might make the documents a little bit longer. We will practice some DBQs with longer documents, all right? One strategy, though, that I want to share with you, and I'm going to tell you this every week so that you remember, if you get on the DBQ and you're like, I have no idea what these documents are saying, no clue whatsoever, but you know the topic. Let's say the topic is trans-Saharan trade route. You can write context on that, right? We just did it tonight. You can totally write context and then get 1 point. You may be able to throw together a thesis, maybe, if you can kind of like glean from the documents what the topics are about and what they're talking about. But you could definitely get this evidence. So if you got context and you wrote additional evidence that relate to the main topic, then that could potentially be 3 points right there. Then if it's possible to do point of view, because you could probably do a point of view without completely understanding the entire document, because you're looking at why they're writing it. You know, what outside is influencing them to write that way. So if you got these 2 points and these 2 points, that's 5 points already. So not all is lost. That's what I'm trying to tell you. If you get on this DBQ and you're like, man, this I just don't understand these documents, then just try to write these points that you don't really need the documents for. Now, should you absolutely try to write the whole DBQ? Yes. But if for whatever reason these documents are just blowing your mind, then don't freak out about it. Write the things that you can write. And that's all I got to say about that. All right. So once again, this is from Unit 1 of the AMSCO book. If you have the new AMSCO book, next week we're going to be doing the Unit 2 DBQ from the AMSCO book. So if you have access to that, you can start working on it, looking through those documents so that you can kind of check yourself when you're listening to the live. Do we have to have the exact same thesis? No, we probably won't have the exact same thesis. That's okay, but you can pop it in the comments and kind of run it past me and I'll let you know about it, okay? Practice will help you get faster, okay? So you definitely want to practice these on your own, and then you can catch the live and see how you did. If you're a Westside student, I have login information for you using your HISD information. So if I'm not your teacher, you can ask your teacher for that login information, or you can email me at jkwezi@houstonisd.org. I'll write it up here. This only works for Westside students, though. So if you're listening to me and you're not a Westside student, you'll have to talk to your teacher. But if you are a Westside student, email me here at this email address, and I will send you access to the online new version of the AMSCO book so that you will have access to these documents before the live. If you're one of my students, I'll make sure and put that on Google Classroom so that you'll have it. And if you are not a Westside student, you can talk to your teacher, ask your teacher to contact their AMSCO book rep and get the information for how to access it online for free. Right now, because of the school shutdown, they're giving it to you for free online. All right, so we're about to wrap up. If you have any other quick questions about this DBQ that we just covered, drop them in the comments. If you're just logging on and catching the end of this, make sure that you grab the DBQ that's down below in the description. And the rubric is also down below there. Before you go, make sure and click that thumbs up, because that helps the channel out a lot. And I thank you so, so much for listening. Tune in next week. Wednesday at 7, we'll be going over Unit 2 DBQ. And if you have time, make sure and do that before you tune in. That way you can get some practice. You're so welcome, Lauren. Lauren, let me know if you need some more DBQ resources. I have some for APUSH. Just shoot me an email and I'll get you some help as well. And Luz, what's an example of the unicorn point? Well, unicorn point is just super hard to get. I can't even really give you a straight answer because I've never actually graded the DBQ. I've only went out and graded the SAQ. But from one of my friends that graded the DBQ, he said basically the unicorn point is gotten or is granted. That's a better word for it. The unicorn point is granted if the essay is really, really well done. Okay, so for example, if it's asking for cause and effect, you write about cause and effect both. If it's writing about just similarity, you also include a difference. If it's writing about change and they only ask you for change, also include a continuity. So basically going above and beyond. The reason why I don't really teach it that much when we're going over DBQs is because it's really hard to get, and it's going to be extremely hard to get with this time limit. Okay, so basically, you just want to try to get done the first 9 points, I think it is now, the first 9 points, and then hopefully you will achieve that last point. But if you look at the rubric that I put on here, and I gave you the link, let me see the exact wording. The easiest one I would say to get would be the second bullet point where you're explaining both similarity and difference. Now, the only thing that confuses me about that is if it's asking for a similarity and a difference in the DBQ, then of course you're going to write both. So I don't know if that still qualifies, but you can try it and see. Both continuity and change, multiple causes, or both causes and effects. So you just want to make sure that when you're reading your prompt, if it's only asking for cause, then write about effects too. But you have to use the documents, right? So that's why doing it in this time limit is going to be very challenging. The other thing that you could say to get this point is insightful connections within or across time periods. So maybe an example for this one could be talking about the Silk Road and how it got safer under the Mongols and comparing it to how Ibn Battuta said that that area was safe. The reason it was safe under the Mongols was because of leadership, which is similar to what Ibn Battuta was talking about, right? So maybe making connections like that. You could also connect the Columbian Exchange maybe somehow. But those are probably going to be the two that will be the easiest to get that unicorn point. I would say, though, if you get the other 9, then you're amazing. And I would grant you the unicorn point for getting the 9 because I guarantee there aren't going to be very many people to be able to do it. 45 minutes goes so fast. And we'll be practicing that within your class to help you guys get faster. But I couldn't believe it. Like when I was writing this one, I was like, man, this time went really quick. It just shocked me. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. And I will see you next week for Unit 2. Have a great week and don't work too hard. I know you guys are enjoying sleeping in. So at least there's one perk to this quarantine. I do miss your faces though, let me tell you. It's just not the same when it's on the computer. Wan Ying, you are so welcome. You have a great rest of the night too. I miss you, kid. And looking forward to maybe if we get to go back. And if not, we'll definitely have to have a big celebration party when we go back to school in the fall and you guys are all juniors and getting ready for APUSH. It's going to go so quick. Anyways, I'll talk to you all later and have a great night. What time is it? Ashley, it is 8:09. So I'm on Central Time. And are you on Eastern Standard Time, maybe? But it is 8:09 right now. We start the lives at 7 Central on Wednesday nights to go over the DBQs. All right, guys. See you later.